Hi everyone, it's Elliot, and Criterion have just announced their full slate of releases for August 2020. Now, we already had one of these announcements earlier this week, and I will refer you back to that video in a bit, but I'm here to talk about the rest of the releases that are coming in August, and it's set to be a pretty good one. It's not one of my favourite slates, but there's some pretty good stuff in there, so I'm going to get into each title now. So doing these in release order, the first title, which comes out on August 4th, 2020, is The Lost Honour of Katerina Bloom, and this is directed by Volker Schlondorf and Marguerite von Trotter. I'll admit this is a film I've not seen, and it's a bit of a blind spot in my world cinema history, because it's a film that's on many lists of the best films of the last 50 years from around the world. It's just evaded me for whatever reason. I'm quite a fan of Volker Schlondorf already because he's done some great films, notably The Tin Drum, but this one I've just not seen, so I'm very excited to finally pick this up on Blu-ray and see what all the fuss is about. I know that the basic gist of the story is about this woman who gets involved with a terrorist, and then she is chased and questioned by the police, and it just kind of escalates from there. That's basically all I know. Now, this is an upgrade from DVD because it was released on spine number 177 on DVD. So that's pretty exciting. It's good that we're getting more DVD upgrades, more Laserdisc upgrades. There are so many titles that I still wish would be upgraded from DVD and Laserdisc. So the more of these we get, the more hope there is that certain ones will be upgraded. I'm particularly talking about you, Kurosawa's Ran. The film itself is from a 4K digital restoration, so that's always music to my ears. The actual special features, it's pretty light, I would say. There's only 2 interviews from 2002 with the directors and the director of photography. Now, I'm sure they'll be very interesting. I just would have maybe expected a bit more. I don't know how that stacks up against the existing DVD, by the way. Are these the same features that are being carried over? I'm not too sure because I've not really done much research for this video. I've just heard the news and just wanted to get this out there. But anyway, with all that said, it's a release I'm definitely going to be picking up, and I can finally cross this one off the list of top world cinema films to see. So can't wait for this one. The next release, coming out on the 11th of August this year, is the complete films of Agnes Varda. And yes, I realised that in my old video I was pronouncing her name wrong. I've been thoroughly corrected by people, so now I know it's not Agnes Varda, it's Agnes Varda. Anyway, yeah, I made a video the other day talking about my initial impressions of that announcement, so yeah, I'll link that in the description and probably on the screen somewhere, so go and check that out. I won't talk too much about that except that I'm so excited, and it's looking to be the top release of the year so far. So can't wait to get my hands on it, and I'm sure you'll be hearing more about that set from me on this channel when I eventually pick it up. So then on August 18th this year, we have 2 releases from Criterion coming out, but I'll talk about the one that is first in spine order first. So the first release coming out on the 18th is Town Bloody Hall, directed by Chris Hegedus and D.A. Pennebaker. This one is set to be a fascinating release. It's been on my radar for a while, but I've not actually seen it. Now, I'm a big fan of D.A. Pennebaker. I have some of his other films that are in the collection already, which I might talk about in a minute. It's a documentary, but it's actually more of a filmed debate that has been edited down to actually run as a smooth documentary film. The debate was between Norman Mailer, who had written this really provocative essay called The Prisoner of Sex, and he was facing off against 4 feminists, and it was like a death match, a fight to the death, basically. So the 4 feminists that Mailer was debating against, I'm going to try and get these names correct: Jacqueline Ceballos, or Ceballos, Germaine Greer, Jill Johnston and Diana Trilling. Now, out of those 4, I'm only really familiar with Germaine Greer because she's from England and she's been on English TV discussing feminist ideas and female empowerment and things like that for ages. So I have come across her quite a bit, but the others not too familiar with, so I'm looking forward to actually seeing what they have to say about the subject. So I've not seen this documentary, and I know you're probably thinking it sounds a bit dry, but from what I've heard, it's actually very entertaining and witty and funny, and just a great debate all around. So I can't wait to actually watch this one. And the special features actually do sound pretty interesting as well. It's quite packed, I'd say. So the film itself is a 2K digital restoration. There's an interview with Chris Hegedus. There's an audio commentary with Hegedus and Jermaine Greer. There's footage from a 2004 celebration of the film with some of the filmmakers. There's an appearance from 1971 of Norman Mailer actually talking about his book on the Dick Cavett Show. And then there's some archival interviews with Jermaine Greer and Norman Mailer. Oh, and I should say this is spy number 1039. So Town Bloody Hall is set to be a great release, and I've got some of the D.A. Pennebaker films that I really love in the collection already. Bob Dylan, Don't Look Back, and then the complete Monterey Pop Festival. So these are great Pennebaker films, and if this one is anything like these, I can't wait for it. If you're liking this video, hearing me talk about Criterion Collection films, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel so that you can hear about these videos as soon as they get uploaded. Anyway, back to the Criterion August slate. Also coming out on August 18th this year, and this is spy number 1041. It's The Comfort of Strangers, directed by Paul Schrader. And this is a film that I have seen, and I have some thoughts about this one. So this film I actually watched just last week, so it is fresh in my mind. I actually watched the UK Blu-ray of it from BFI. This film, it should be a great film, and maybe I just don't get it yet, because it has so many great people involved. It's directed by Paul Schrader. It's written by Harold Pinter, adapted from an Ian McEwan novel, so that's two great writers there. And obviously Paul Schrader is a great writer in his own right. And then the actors, you got Rupert Everett, Natasha Richardson, Christopher Walken, and Helen Mirren. And then on top of that, the music is done by Angelo Badalamenti, who worked with David Lynch on Twin Peaks and Blue Velvet. So all around, it's pretty much set to be a great film. So why does it not resonate with me? Well, the story is about this young couple who go to Venice to kind of get their relationship back going because they're having problems. And they come across this older man, this Italian gentleman, who basically lives in this palace. And he takes a particular interest in them, and he gives them tours around. He shows them his house and everything like that. And it's all this story of intrigue and passion and love. And for whatever reason, it just doesn't click with me. It hasn't clicked with me yet. I'd say that the film doesn't really compare to some of Schrader's other works. It doesn't feel anything like Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters. It doesn't feel anything like First Reformed or Blue Collar, or it doesn't feel anything like Taxi Driver or Raging Bull. It's just a very complicated film, and I just don't get it. So if you've watched Comfort of Strangers and you really enjoy it, or maybe you really hate it, just let me know in the comments below, because I want to talk to people about this film. Oh, and probably the most perplexing thing about this film is Christopher Walken plays an Italian man with a full Italian accent, but he's still doing his usual Christopher Walken shtick. It's bizarre to watch, and I don't think it works at all. Regardless, the release looks to be a pretty good one because it's a 4K digital transfer. There's new interviews with the DOP, Dante Spinotti, interviews with Paul Schrader, interviews with Christopher Walken and with Bill Pankow, who's the editor of the film. And there's further interviews with Ian McEwan and Natasha Richardson. And then in the booklet, there's an essay by critic Maitland McDonough. So it looks like a pretty interesting release. In terms of how it compares to the BFI, let's just have a look. Now, the BFI has an audio commentary with Paul Schrader that was actually done for this release. So that's missing from the Criterion release. So if you want an audio commentary for Comfort of Strangers, you want to pick this one up. Oh, this one has a film masterclass with Paul Schrader, which plays over the film, kind of like an audio commentary. So it's almost like you've got two commentaries here. And then this one's stacked with a bunch of short films, some glimpses about Venice. Yeah, the features look pretty different between the two releases. So if you're a super fan of this film, you'll want to double dip. I'm not sure I'm going to double dip just yet. It's a film that perplexes me, and I just don't engage with it yet. So I'm hoping that changes in the future. But yeah, that's The Comfort of Strangers, and that's what I have to say about it so far. The final film coming out in August on the 25th is Tony from Jean Renoir. Now, Renoir is fast becoming one of my favourite directors of all time. Up until a while ago, I'd only seen 3 of his films. I was a big fan of The Grand Illusion and The Rules of the Game and French Can-Can. But I've watched a few more of his films recently, and in fact I watched one just last night for the first time, and I've taken a new appreciation of his work, and I cannot wait for Tony because it's one I've not seen, so this is very exciting. Tony is set to be spy number 1040, and now I'm not familiar with the plot at all, so I'm not going to talk about it like I know what it's about. I'll just have a look at the special features on this disc. So it's a 4K digital restoration. There's an audio commentary on here. There is an introduction by the director Jean Renoir, which is an interesting thing on all of his Blu-rays. There's a little introduction by him on the others that Criterion have put out, so this seems to be no different. There's an episode of Cinéaste de Notre Temps from 1967 on Renoir, directed by Jacques Rivette. That sounds pretty good. And then there's a video essay about the making of Tony by film scholar Christopher Faulkner. So all around, seems like a pretty stacked release. I know nothing about Tony. Like I said, I'm a pretty big fan of Renoir. I love The Rules of the Game. Last night, I watched The River for the first time, which is stunning. I'm in love with The River. And then possibly my favourite Jean Renoir film, which is maybe a controversial one, French Can-Can. And I would love a Criterion release of French Can-Can. But for now, I'm making do with this BFI release. And of course, Grand Illusion, like I mentioned, I would love Grand Illusion to be upgraded from a Criterion DVD to a Blu-ray. But, you know, that might be the stuff of dreams. But I'm very excited for Tony and more Jean Renoir. So there you have it. Those are the releases for August 2020 coming from the Criterion Collection. Now, it's an absolutely phenomenal month because even if you just consider the Varda box set, that is amazing. And even though I'm not particularly fond of Comfort of Strangers, it's a title that does intrigue me and that I want to delve deeper into in the future. So it's a great month. And I do hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've enjoyed hearing me give my very brief and uneducated thoughts about these films. If you did enjoy this video, please do consider subscribing to the channel. It will be great to have you here. And get involved in the comments below because I'd love to hear your thoughts on these announcements. I will be back for more videos on this very YouTube channel talking about the Criterion Collection and Blu-ray collecting. But until then, if you want to stick around on the channel, just click whatever video is appearing on my face at the moment. I'm sure you'll find more recommendations for films from me in those videos. So until then, stay well and keep watching great films.